Hello, everybody, and welcome to Integrate Online, presented by West Virginia University, Reed College of Media, which offers renowned online master's degrees programs in marketing communication. Thank you for joining us today. I think this is going to be a great topic. Please be sure to keep your mics muted for the session and send questions through the chat feature, and I'll try and keep track of that. My name's Mark Thiebel. Of course, I'm on the faculty here at Reed, and I'm also a consultant that works in the area of market trending, quantitative, qualitative market research, technology issues, and branding and positioning. Today, we'll be discussing leveraging content creation for client-ready portfolios with Kelly Ann Collins, the CEO of Vault Labs, and Kristen Meeks, owner of WB Social Media Consultants, and she is also on the faculty here at WVU. So before we get started, I'd like each of them to tell you a little bit about themselves. Kelly, do you want to start?
Sure. Hi, I'm Kelly Ann Collins. I'm the CEO and founder of Vault Lab, and we are a digital marketing agency, but there's a whole lot of emphasis on social media with what we do. We started out as a social media agency, and then we were like, wait, there's a lot of digital marketing that needs to happen. But so we love both, a lot of emphasis on social. We work with international and national brands, and we also work with nonprofits and NGOs. And we do a lot of big social good campaigns. And we only work with brands, people, influencers, thought leaders who are doing good things for the world. So that's our role.
Great. Thank you. Kristen, how about you?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Kristen Meeks. I will hopefully be celebrating 10 years in business in August. Wasn't sure if that was going to happen earlier in the year, but things have definitely trended towards good in the world of marketing. And I'm over in the Marietta, Ohio, Parkersburg, West Virginia area. So I serve that area a lot of small business, but do have clients all over the United States and work a lot with the local nonprofits and Chamber of Commerce, and sit on some boards of economic development and revitalization of our area. So I teach content marketing at WU with IMC. Now, I think I'm on my 5th year. I'm not sure. I was going to ask at the conference this year. And so I just, live and breathe content marketing and feel like it's a really important component of social and digital and non-traditional as well.
Great. Thanks, Kristen. So we have a number of questions today that are related to both a early student getting started, being new out in the practice, and also, I'd like to hear what your thoughts are for ongoing professionals that want to make a change. And then I've also added a few questions if we get there. So let's start. So I think the first question is, how should students leverage coursework in their portfolio? Kristen?
Well, I have always been a big component of this. My background is higher education. So, I've sat on a lot of hiring committees there and have helped interns and student workers in the world of marketing and outside of marketing as well. And, I remember, sitting down, 12, 15 years ago, and people would bring in these big portfolio, folders. But honestly, the committees loved it. They loved to touch something. They loved to see the work. It really showcased, and honestly, most of the time when people would bring those big folders in, those were the people that we would hire. And so when I'm advising students, I'm an alumni of Marietta College, so I do a lot with their career center over there. When I advise students, especially in the marketing world, I'm like, absolutely take everything as an opportunity to put in your portfolio. Of course, those portfolios aren't big old binders anymore. Maybe they are, but they're usually not. Most of the time they're websites or, even LinkedIn, and they're digital because a lot of their, especially in the digital marketing world, a lot of their components are digital. And so they're able to showcase that. But I think that's really important. And personally for me, as a business owner, that's something people usually want to see. And I'm not a big person of, not that I'm keeping it confidential, but I don't usually tell people who my clients are or anything like that. So that's nowhere else to be found. So I've even created a password protected place on my website that you can find, I can send that to a potential customer or client that's interested. So I think even professionals, as you're working on things that are, doing good, and you've, really proud of something, and you've been able to, showcase something from the ground up to see that return. And I think it's important to kind of keep that someplace. And the digital world is really nice that you can keep it there. And then you could just, send that link out as you're applying for jobs, or, maybe doing some freelancing, or have it, showcased right there on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
Great,
Yeah.
great. Kelly, Ann?
I agree. I agree. I agree with what she's saying. Yeah. And when people ask me how to showcase their work, I always think, yes, I mean, you can have a website, but it really, depends on what you're trying to showcase. So, I mean, maybe your work is a blog, or maybe you're showcasing your work on LinkedIn. So, if you're a writer, you can put your articles on LinkedIn. You can also feature videos if you worked on videos on LinkedIn. So I think it's always good, no matter what, just to have one place to send everyone, like she was just saying. And, if you want to keep it quiet, or if you're under NDAs, because I know like a lot of our projects will be under NDA. We're not really allowed, to say too much about like who we're working with. So yeah, in that case, like she's saying, password protected. Or one thing that we've done in the past is we've had just, a PDF with some of our work, and then a link. And then anytime someone asks us, we just like, ping them the link, and just always have that living like in Google Docs or somewhere.
Yeah. No, I can see that. I understand NDAs all too well. Well, the question is, you both talked about it. I mean, should a prospective student or someone looking to make a career change have their own personal branded website? Is that part of the deal?
I mean, I don't think it would hurt. I think it really depends on what you're applying for and what you're actually trying to showcase. I think LinkedIn does a very good job, like Kellyanne said, being able to put a lot of that stuff on there. So if it's not, I mean, really, sometimes even students have NDAs too. I know we've, at Marietta, we've worked with some companies, and, they've not wanted, that out there. And so I love the link idea that's more protected, not necessarily public. But I mean, I think it depends on what you're really applying for, and what you're showcasing. Like I'm not a graphics person or anything like that. And so that's a totally different dynamic of what you would put out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, if you have a bad website, like, so if you can have a really good looking website, that's one thing. But if you don't know how to do that, I mean, there are resources out there like Wix or Squarespace, but still I have seen some that was a little clunky. So, that could be worse than just giving them a link, if you go to a site and it doesn't look that great. So that's why I say, if you don't have experience with that, or you don't want to fool around with that, I would, advise LinkedIn, or, a link like Kristen was saying.
Okay. So, I mean, that sort of ties into the next question that we have here, which is what kind of content should job seekers be creating? Now, I know, as you both said, it depends on what your specialty is, but maybe you could expand a little bit more on that.
Okay. For different types of jobs, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's think. Okay. So if I'm looking to hire someone for, social media management, I want to see, types of posts they've worked on, if they've done graphics that they've worked on. If they're in PR, I want to see, press releases and media pickups. Well, graphic design, of course, I want to see their designs, and that could just be in a Google Drive folder too. People have submitted it in that way to me before. Data. So for data, we do some data visualization. So sometimes, people will show Tableau, or, infographics, or GIFs they've done with visual, visualizations of, so yeah, I think it does, depend. If it's for a journalism job, I would want to see their clips, just like in the past, because I started out as a journalist, and I remember I remember printing these out, and like mailing them when I was looking for my first job. 'Cause and I just remember printing out all these clips. But now you could have them listed just in even a Google Doc or something. People can check out.
Yeah, that makes
The only
sense.
thing I would probably add to that is, I feel like we're all kind of like our own personal brand. And that goes even back to the portfolio work. I'm always one, and maybe this, I don't have an HR director, and I usually don't hire anyone except for outsourcing. So I could probably do this, but I check out people's social media, and I'm sure other folks are too. So your brand is reflected on all of that. And so, if like, I'm always say, I'm not the best, grammar spelling person, but I use a program that makes me look like I'm a lot better at it than I am. But even just like whatever that personal brand is to you, putting that out there, I think is important, especially with job seeking. If you really want to be, a photographer, then of course, all of your social media, all of your stuff out there that represents you as a brand should be reflective of that. So I think that's something, that to think about, and the good and the bad of social media, of putting that out there when you're getting into the job field, because I feel like people do look on social, whether it's a social job or not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everyone's looking at social right now. And you also, like, right now is a different time though than before, so it's especially hard right now, I think, because you want to be showcasing your work, but then there are also things happening, current events happening. A lot of our clients, we've changed their whole strategy around, so everything is related to coronavirus, or everything is related to what's happening in the news right now. So, if you're just pushing out, oh, look what I did, it's not the same now.
Mm-hmm.
So, so I just think you have to think about that too.
Mm-hmm. And that's a good point. Now, you guys both brought up social, so I mean that's a perfect lead-in. Every social media platform has its own unique personality. At least I feel that way. So, if you were going to put content on different social media, would you do anything different? Would you define it differently? Would you create it differently? Maybe we could talk about that a bit.
Yeah. Absolutely. I do think there's a different audience on every platform. People follow me for different things on different platforms. And so I kind of have a strategy myself and for clients on each of those platforms. I am a big lover, and this is the content marketing right out of the book, of reusing content. But it doesn't mean that you duplicate the same content across all platforms when we reuse it. We definitely find out, what is attractive to the audience on social. And so that's where I see it as repurposing, but you're also, really being mindful of who's following you on those platforms. So it's a lot of data. Like Kellyanne mentioned, data as something that I think people forget about, especially students as they're applying for jobs. Like the numbers don't lie. So show us the numbers, show us what this data looks like, and going and looking at your own data and seeing who's following you and what they look like. I mean, I have a lot of discussions, I will call them, with people that say, but no, my customer is this. And I said, but on this platform, look, your customer is this. So if you don't want that customer, then don't be on that platform. But if you're going to speak to your customers that are on that platform, you got to speak to these folks, because those folks aren't on that platform. So there's a lot of that digging, and it does it. And honestly, it's been easier now than ever to find that data. 10 years ago, that data didn't exist, and now it does. So it's easy to find that data. You just got to know what to do with it, and how to really serve your customer the best using that data on a platform.
So how do you find the data, Kristen? Can you go deeper on that?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of times each social media platform has its own insights. And that's where I would start with somebody. It's free, it's right there. If you've been using it, it's right there. If it's a new platform, it's not as easy, but you can always look at data from, competitors and people doing other things that are similar to you. Then there's also, paid sources with that. that I have clients using. It just really depends on the industry, what those are. But you can really spend some money in data and look at it. But honestly, the platforms themselves, like, I mean, there's always some that could be a lot better, but Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, they all have insights right there. Not all of them are the most robust insights I've ever seen, but they have a little bit of data that you can at least look at to figure out who that person is that you should be talking to, and that's going to help you create your content.
Right. Yeah. And it's going to be harder on some than others, because it's really hard to pull that information, say like if you have a personal LinkedIn, because when we work with thought leaders, it's hard to like look at their audience. If you have a LinkedIn page, it's easier, although it's harder to get people to follow you on a LinkedIn page. So, if you're on Twitter and you want to target, say, you're in sports media, I'm just like throwing something out there. You can, look and see what hashtags people in that, that I kind of like work backwards. So if you want people who want to hear about Steelers news, maybe that's a bad example, but like if if you're writing about that, then you kind of have to like backtrack. So I would look at like hashtag Steelers or hashtag, different hashtags. And then, see what are the top posts, who are the top influencers, and connect with those people and kind of build a community around that too, because you can kind of like reverse engineer it, I guess. And then you can also look at those hashtags. There's a free tool called Tweet Reach. And if you look at that, you can look, in the past 24 hours, see who the top influencers are, see what the traffic's like. So that's something that, we like to do too. It's just kind of work backwards. So like, maybe if you think your audience isn't somewhere, like they might be there, like they might be on Twitter, but you have to like kind of dig in and see.
Okay. By the way, just to interject, we don't have any questions yet, so please feel free to use the chat function to throw questions at us. You brought up something very interesting too, Kelly. The hashtags and they tend to work better on Twitter. I don't find them to be quite as effective on Instagram, but maybe you might view that differently than me.
Well, okay. So Instagram is just, it's really hashtag heavy. If you're trying to attract people to an audience there, a lot of times people will go with the hashtags that they think have the biggest reach, but that's not always the best strategy, because you want to find your audience. So you want to look up the hashtags on Instagram, and you want to see like maybe not the one that has like 2 million people using it a day, but maybe you want the one that like 50,000 people are using a day, because your post, if you're using those super popular hashtags, can get lost in the chaos of that hashtag. So you want to be super targeted with it. And I would also say, like, don't concentrate on like having a ton of followers. That's not as important as having, a small engaged audience. We've had accounts before with like 10,000 followers with more engagement than accounts with 1 million followers, just because of the way those accounts were built. We've inherited some with 1 million that were just like not targeted. So that's more important than having a big audience. So I would worry more about finding the right people.
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually used hashtags to find people. A lot of people have had to pivot with the COVID. I have clients that are used to face-to-face 24/7, and now they're online, and they've not really ever had an online presence before because they didn't have to. Where they were making it all over here, so they were like, well, I'll just do that later, or it's an afterthought. And so I've had to really build some brands out in the last few months, and we've used hashtags on Instagram a ton to find the right audience. And it's been very successful being able to find influencers that way and really build an audience quicker than I've seen in the past. And I don't know if there's just more people, scrolling right now than ever before. But it was pretty pretty successful in the last couple of months to do that. And I'm hoping that continues to, be able to kind of find those people through hashtags, especially on Instagram, where I agree with Kelly, there's a ton of those ones that have millions and millions, but there's still that micro kind of group of people that only have like 10,000 fans. Those are the people that are seeing that engagement and engaging with each other and partnering. And that's really where I'm seeing it in the small business world and the nonprofit world, where people are seeing success on platforms like Instagram and using hashtags.
Yep. No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I tend to have much more of a business to business, clientele. And even there, the nano influencers and the advocates, and a lot of them you can find based on how they interact with your website too, but the hashtags, I've been having a lot of fun looking for very, very specific hashtags on Twitter and on Instagram. So yeah, no, you're dead on there. So the question then comes up, based on what we've just discussed, is you go looking for people based on hashtags and I'm sure a bunch of other things, but how do you then turn around and get your clients' content more aware? I mean, as we all know, back in the day when I started, there was nothing on the web. And then now it's like there's way, way, way too much on the web. So how do you get people to view your clients' content?
I just make it, oh, God.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so when we first start, we do all the research, say we're working with a new client. We just start doing all the research. We find out like, who do you want to target, and what do you have? And then we narrow it down into different content like buckets or themes.
Mm-hmm.
And then we come up with a like a content plan and calendar and everything. And then we just make sure, that that's what we're posting about. Everything has to be aligned. Like you'll have the best, I don't even want to call it luck, but results. Even if like it doesn't feel right, you'll still have better results if everything's aligned. Like if your content and your hashtags, your imagery and everything is, all like, fitting together, instead of like, okay, well, I'm going to put stuff out about social media marketing, but I'm also going to put this out and this out. And I'm guilty of it myself. Like, I do it. It's hard not to do it, but you will have the best results if like you just stick to the plan. And, and always look at your analytics and see, like, we always look and see like what were the most popular posts, what got the most likes and comments and everything. And like, we're just gonna be like, ooh, people just do not like this topic at all. So do we really need to be posting about this anymore? Or like, wow, people really love the posts with pictures of dogs. So let's put more pictures of dogs in there.
Do you find, now that's interesting, you brought up likes, comments. In your mind, do you see a difference there? Are comments better than likes, or, shares? Do you like shares?
We count all of them as engagement. So, they just all count together. We also like to look because, especially in places like Facebook, you can't see some of the analytics. So sometimes, we'll have someone say, well, we're not getting any likes. So we're working with, assist like a group of addiction centers. And, they're like, well, we're not really getting a ton. They're getting likes, so they're not like getting a ton of likes. And we're like, so we look and we see people are clicking, but not everybody wants to like comment and be like, yeah, I have an addiction. You know what I mean? So, so for them, we look a lot at like, the clicks and the engagement, and look to see like who's looking at the content. Because then that's a special case. So you want to look at everything, I think. Okay. Clicks are really important too, because sometimes something will have 600 clicks and 2 likes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and job postings too will be like that. Not as many likes as clicks.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Kristen?
So with me, I feel like it's a lot of trial and error, to find out what will stick. Kind of like what Kellyanne said, you put some stuff out there, and it's usually the stuff, to me anyway, that I think, oh, people are really gonna like this, or my client is really passionate about something and they want to talk about it, and it's crickets. And then it's the piece that you're like, well, I guess this aligns and maybe we should go with this campaign. Everyone's kind of hesitant, and it's the one that takes off. So really it's not about you as much as about the customer, and really trial and error and trying to see what sticks and what doesn't. That's where I get the reuse content a lot. Is I'll go back, I've worked with some clients the entire time I've been in business, and I'll go back and see, well, what really worked last June, and we'll look at that when we're planning, for this June. And so we do a lot of that with the content calendars, which is great. I think when I first did my first content calendar, it was like in a piece of paper, and now we have these like great digital forms that can be shared, and in one click you can go back and see the last 6 years, and so we can really see what worked and what didn't, and what your customers are responding to, because it might not be the thing that you think they should be responding to, but you're not their target audience.
No, and
Yeah.
that Krista, and that's a great point. I mean, I see that a lot with customer journey too. It's like
Mm-hmm.
the more interactions you have with a customer, the more you know about what they're going to like and dislike, and the more trends you can build. And what you were saying is absolutely true. If I have a client that I've worked with for 5 years, I'm going to know their client base and who reacts a lot better than someone I just start with.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I think I really like about Instagram stories, because it's kind of like marketing research, but at your fingertips. Like, we're in higher education. We hired these huge firms to do marketing research. They did a fantastic job, but it took months and sometimes years to get the results. And then it was obsolete after that. So now I can, okay, you want to see what your customers are interested in? Let's throw up 3 Instagram stories and ask them. Because people love to touch their screen, and they'll touch it and they'll tell us. And then we're like, okay, we know what we're going to post next month, especially in this time. I mean, I feel like all the planning I did in November might as well have just been like, it's probably burning in a bonfire someplace right now. It might as well just not even be around, because it's totally up in the air. So right now we're going, okay, what are we going to do next month? We're not used to that. And we can go out and survey them, and within 24 hours, know what that customer that's living on Instagram right now wants to see from us, and what's going to make them pull the trigger and purchase something, or go to the website, or, like or comment or follow.
What do you think, Kellyanne?
Yeah, I mean, we had a lot of content plans that we put together for this year. 2020 is just, I don't even know what to say. But we basically had to plan, toss pretty much every strategy out and redo it. So it's been really busy lately, because everything has just had to switch, because we do a lot in healthcare. And so all of that has had to switch, to coronavirus. And even the companies who aren't in that, they've still had to pivot some. The ones that refuse to pivot aren't doing so well. I did advise them to pivot, and the ones that I've noticed haven't pivot, you have to pivot, because, if you keep putting out your sales information during a crisis, people are just going to be like, oh, they don't want to hear what you have to say. So you have to tweak things. So even, with, some like law firms and places like that, we've tweaked, and we've done some like Stay Strong campaigns and helping local business campaigns too for them.
Well, that's an interesting thought too, because that brings up another thought in my mind. You talking about tweaking. So you put something out there, you see how it works, you tweak it. Do either one of you also do any A/B testing, where you put out multiple versions at the same time and track it?
Yes, definitely with paid social ads all the time. Because I'm always like, I don't know, because what worked yesterday is probably not working today, and probably definitely not gonna work tomorrow. So it's constant. Every single time I put any kind of paid ad, I do a lot of A/B testing with the headlines, with the photos, with the actual verbiage and the content, even where it's linked to. I mean, right now I probably have a dozen A/B tests running right now that I check in on and tweak and look at. And almost immediately, which Kellyanne will like this, last week I had a client say, I have a picture of a dog on a bed. Do you think that would work? I'm like, yes. Put the dog on the bed picture up. And it's actually doing, like, I think the second best out of these 6 photos that she picked. And I said, people love dogs. So, you know, we put that out there. We try to do our best to pick, and then we kind of just let the customer lead. And then I do a lot of, you know, after that, I do a lot of scaling. You know, I'm like, okay, you know, these 3 didn't work and these 3 are killing it. Let's get rid of those and let's put our money on here. I mean, recently, probably February, middle of March, through the middle of March, Instagram ads were doing really fantastic for a certain client of mine. And then as soon as this hit, it was like everyone that was on Instagram went back to Facebook and were like living, breathing, and commenting and everything else over there, that we pulled Instagram ads completely. Then we found out the next month that Facebook ads were out delivering twice as much as Google ads, which had not happened in a year.
Wow.
Because people were living and breathing. So guess what? We turned everything off except for Facebook. And that did really well until about a week and a half ago. And so now we've turned everything off. But you know, it's one of those things where it's all the climate. It's all what's going on. And you have to be more aware of what's around you than what's, I mean, you can read as much expert opinion, you can listen to me and everything that way. But if there's something going outside of your 4 walls, you got to be on it. You got to realize what's going on. Kind of like Kellyanne said, you know, you got to pivot. I've seen, I mean, luckily most of my clients except for one pivoted and the rest, and that one did not. And I've been watching other businesses I've worked with in the past and just have, you know, use and have been a loyal customer to, and they just couldn't pivot. And it worries me for their future. Because they're doing nothing, and that's not the best content to put out right now. Is nothing.
Now, do you find that you, with different clients, you allow things to run at a different amount of time? I mean, in other words, you know, some clients need multiple exposures. You know, sometimes it's quick. You know, I mean, I one of the things that I see a lot is people are looking. All right, we're running a campaign. We have real time. We're seeing it, you know, we're using a study, and they'll start dabbling with stuff like hours after it starts.
Stop. That's usually what I scream at the computer. No.
Yeah, I mean, a lot has changed, and like with Facebook traffic has been up. I think last time I checked, it was up 70%. So, I mean, yeah, Facebook is way up. We do ads, but we concentrate more on organic, but then we do ads too. So we'll do some ad campaigns or, you know, some growth campaigns, you know, just depending on what we're doing. But yeah, the one thing I have noticed with Facebook is that any sort of social issue or COVID related, you know, we've been running into problems or getting those ads, like, you know, kicked off. Even on my own personal one, like the governor of New York asked, you know, his team asked me to help with a campaign for it. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to boost this. And then Facebook was like, no. And then I had to go through a special approval process. So they've added some different processes too. And then, I made a note. Oh yeah. And like for clients, I'll test a lot of things on my own social media first is one thing I do. So I'm sort of the test account person. So if someone wants to post something, sometimes I'll post it with an ad or like a specific type of content just to see in general what kind of reaction before putting on a client's account. But I mean, I know that's a little different, but I'll do that sometimes if we have something a little crazy that they want to do. I'll be like, well, test it on me first because I don't want your account to get banned. And I'm like,
well, that's interesting. So you actually test it yourself so that the client doesn't get dinged
or trolled
Yeah.
or something, and so like I'll end up getting it.
That's very interesting. So with that said, you know, I mean, you guys obviously are doing testing, you know, you check out yourself, and we talked about it a little bit before, but to you, what constitutes success? And does it vary by client?
It does for me vary by client. I try to get, I use the word try, to get people to say, what is your objective with this? If you want to work with me, you want to run this campaign, you want to put this dollar amount towards an ad, what's your objective? And most of the time they say, I want my product sold, right? I want to sell product. So you sell product, and that's it. Sometimes it's, well, I just want brand awareness. I just want to get my name out there. Okay, that's great. Then they come back to you, well, we did this, but I didn't get any Facebook likes. And I'm like, well, that wasn't your objective. So I have to always go back and I say it and we talk about it and we write it down, but I usually have to go back to it. So really the success with me, like, I love numbers. I can pull data all day long, but most of my clients don't even look at it, right? So I know they don't. I look at, I have a thing that tells me if they look at it or not. But what I know is that when they're happy, when they call me and say, hey, what's been going on last 48 hours? Because we're slammed. Well, like we were talking, it was Memorial Day. It was a Memorial Day sale. It was trending online. All of a sudden it was spiking. So a lot of times it's nothing magic I did. It's the same campaign we've been running for 3 or 4 days beforehand, but it's what's trending and what's going on. So usually I'm more of I see how they're reacting and what they're seeing as good results. But of course the numbers, always back you up. A lot of times they'll say, oh, I think that's running too much, or I think that's annoying. And again, I'm always like, well, you're not the target audience. And sometimes it's going to take somebody, 3 or 4 times to see you to convert. But here's some numbers that tell you that's not annoying. It's 30,000 reach and only two people hit it. That's not really that annoying. So you have to kind of back up some of your, the reason you do things. And I always say the reason you're paying somebody to do this and you're not doing it yourself is the years of experience I have and trial and error of stuff that I know what's going to work and what's not going to work coming out the gate most of the time, except for a COVID crisis. And then, you're good to go.
Yeah. I mean, the way that we look at success is different from the way our clients look at success. And I mean, the way I look at it is I want to see it all. I want to see engagement. I want to see growth. I want to see, people commenting. I want to see it all. But, some of them, they have different goals. Since we work on a lot of social good campaigns, a lot of them are like, we did something with the United Nations recently and TED Ed, like from the TED Talks, TED Ed. And, so I always ask, before we start something, I was like, what is like your dream goal, or like, what is your dream thing for this? And, they're like, well, we'd like to get 1 million. I was like, how about 1 billion? like 1 billion impressions or something. And I think we ended up getting a couple billion on that one. But then, like at Conservation International, I was like, what is your dream for this? And they were like, I would like Oprah to tweet about it. And I was like, okay. Okay. So that entire time I was always trying to think, okay, how do I get Oprah to tweet about this? And we finally got Oprah to tweet about it in like a very roundabout way. But like some of them measure success with a tweet. Well, I'm not saying that was the only way they measured it, but like to them, they're like, we would really love Oprah. We really like, 1 million impressions of this campaign or something. We're working on one right now, and they just wanted like a couple 100,000 impressions a day, and we're doing like 3 million a day. So like, it just, and I like to exceed it too. I didn't really know if we were going to get Oprah to tweet about that, but like we did. So that was, yeah.
Good. That's terrific. Well, I'd like to switch gears a little bit here, because I think this question is really interesting. I think you both will have great input on this. So my question is, what suggestions do you have about inspiration, on what kind of content to create? How do you find inspiration? Either one, Kellyanne.
Take it.
Sure.
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I mean, like, I know, I mean, since we work on so many different things, it's different. We have different social media managers on different accounts. So the way I usually do it is when we have someone new coming in, I just talk to everybody and I was like, okay, I'll use dogs again. I'll be like, who loves dogs a lot? Or like, who loves working at home a lot? Or who loves the environment a lot? And like, I try to assign the projects to people who like actually really love that thing. Because I think, you know, if you're working and doing something that you love, you're not going to have a ton of problems finding inspiration. So, I mean, my background is news, so I have to like watch myself because like anything's trending in the news, I can get sucked in really quickly because like that's what inspires me. It's like what's happening. But yeah, I would just say focus on, you know, what you love for your job, your career, and your social, and then it doesn't feel like work. And then you'll just work way too much.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Social media is done best when it's done by somebody that's really passionate about it. And that's why I do a lot of coaching too, to get them there. So when I'm coaching them, I usually tell them, you know, look at, you know, what your users are doing, you know, what's some user generated content. We go back to that hashtags and say, okay, if this is somebody that we definitely want to be connected to, what else are they posting about? Who else are they following? You know, and get inspiration that way. Like I said, I love user generated content because that's like little marketers for you all over the world, all over the interweb, marketing for you. And those people love to see their photo or their testimony or whatever that content is put out there on social. I mean, I'm a stickler to that too. I think that Merida College was like, hey, can I have a testimonial? I'm like, sure. They put it on their website and then they like tweeted it. And I'm like, what? There I am. And then my training today, there comes my picture from IMC. And I'm like, oh, look. And it's just a little like warm, fuzzy thing that makes people want to go, oh, wow, they featured me. And now I'm going to, you know, share everybody and tell everyone about it. So it's the grandparent effect. You know, everyone wants to brag on that. So I do a lot of, you know, being inspired from the users and the people that already follow them, you know, maybe already purchased from them. If it's a new business, it's their, you know, their I always call it the perfect client. You know, they think about that perfect client, then they go out there and look for them and get inspired by what else they're doing and what else, you know, if they're involved in a nonprofit or, you know, they're a dog person or, you know, what that is. And that inspiration is where I kind of go with content, especially in those times where, I mean, right now I don't think we lack of content, but there are times, and sometimes it's summer, where there's just is not much going on. And so it's like, where can I really go and still serve my customers and still showcase, you know, my brand, but also be really relevant and engaging, because that's what it comes down to. So you got to stay there all the time. So when you do have some really great, awesome stuff coming out, you know, a new product in the fall, people are still there to see it.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like you both have a process to a degree. So nothing ever occurs to you randomly. I mean, I tend to run into that problem all the time.
Yeah, sometimes we do brainstorming sessions, or we don't do a lot of work on Pinterest, but personally, I don't do much with my own social media since we're doing so many others. But when I used to pay more attention to my own social media, I would go, you know, because I wanted to post about social media marketing. And I think going to Pinterest and just like looking and seeing everything people are posting can help, and just getting ideas that way. Even just following the hashtags, seeing what other people are doing, I think can, you know, spark something. And just looking at other accounts, like there are some accounts, I love following like Wendy's account on, you know, Twitter, and like Netflix and some other, you know, crazy ones just for
Oreo's a
yeah.
good one.
Yeah. And just like looking at theirs, and, you know, but like we can't always be like that for, you know, our clients, but like that can spark things too, you know, or maybe just spark a conversation.
Absolutely. And, you know, like I said, I do a lot of coaching. So I'm always saying, okay, here's where I would turn. I look at like national days of the week. I mean, there's a whole calendar of that. I look at what's trending. I tend to like, I read a lot, so I feel like I'm pretty well read, and I tend to try to keep an ear to the ground. And so if there's something that comes up, and it could be a week or a day, day before it comes up somewhere in my realm of reading, I'll push that to a client and be like, hey, look, this is something that you could be involved in. And it might have to be a quicker turnaround than our typical, long-term planning. So when I do long-term planning, I always allow for some holes so we can have that inspiration and that new stuff. Because there's always, like I said, a client texted me right before here. We do yoga at the point, which is super fun, outside yoga, usually hundreds of people. Now, socially distanced at 25. But she's like, oh yeah, Snowbiz is coming tonight. She texts me like right now. I'm like, okay, you better get that. I'm like, okay. And then that stuff happens organically. So you have to kind of have holes in your content calendar to put that in there. But that's where it could be really fun. So something like that, if somebody's standing in line after they do yoga, eating Snowbiz is going to be such a better piece of content than probably anything else that we could put out tonight of, hey, it was a really hot night doing yoga tonight, in a thunderstorm possibly. So those kinds of things are fun to come up, and it's good to have a place for them in your calendar.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I had a class, and somebody, and I can't remember the name of the company, but they were a fast food / 50s type place in Virginia area, and they had massive amounts of user-generated content. I mean, that was sort of their whole shtick. They actually got people to generate content to their site of them eating in front of like something fancy, in the 50s, and they had a good time with it.
Mm-hmm. That's fun.
That.
I like doing that. I like having a hashtag and be like, we have an upcoming campaign for this company that just basically exploded with all the stay-at-home things. And so they're hiring like 500 people every 45 days to, do work at home stuff. And so we want to do something where people are like showing where they work at home, and, I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Because that's user-generated content too, because then you can just, repurpose that. Yeah.
Take some of the work out.
Yeah. Now that I'm thinking about it, maybe we should start that like tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I was working with a new client. They're doing some events, hopefully at the end of this year and into next year. And I'm like, if we can get a good hashtag that people will use, and you can get those people and kind of use your influencers to do that, then I'm like, then it's easy street essentially, because you have great product to push out. So, that's kind of like sometimes the ultimate goal there in some instances.
Okay. I actually have a question.
Okay.
I don't know that maybe we can get some clarification on this, but the question is, could you share company names / social tags again for us, please? So I'm thinking they want you to share your names, is my guess.
Okay. Sure. I'm just, it's CAC, ITSKAC, my initials, everywhere. Our company is Volt Lab, and it's just Volt Lab everywhere, VULT, and then lab, Volt like a vulture. I have a thing for vultures.
Seeing if we could type it in, but I can't figure out. Mine just WV social media.
Yeah, let me see if I can type. Oh, I think we can type.
Oh,
okay.
I think I need to make mine bigger. There we go.
All right.
That might be easier.
That would be good. Yes, tag that in.
There we go.
By the way, while you guys are doing that, I happen to love Pinterest. I know mostly it's not guys, but I love it because it's such a great curation program. I mean, I have probably about, tons and tons of things, but anything that fascinates me, I just create a board for it, and but it helps me a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Great, I see that. Hopefully that is what you wanted to see. And any closing thoughts? I mean, we're getting down to 10 minutes before, and Karen said, she says, yes, it is. That was perfect, so good. Any closing thoughts on content and you got 10 minutes. Go ahead, Kelly.
Okay, I did make some notes before I came on here, and I wanted
Good.
to remember to say, don't feel like you have to be everywhere, you know, because I think some people feel like they have to be on Twitter, they have to be on LinkedIn, they have to be on Facebook, they have to be on Instagram. You don't have to be everywhere. I mean, even with us, I'm kind of like, we don't even really use our Instagram because that's, you know, our target market isn't like really there, you know. So I would just, you know, pick the one that you like the best. Like, I think have a LinkedIn, everyone needs that, but then like pick your favorite and then just, you know, knock that one out of the park. That's what I would do. The one that you like, you're most comfortable on, and where, you know, you're finding your audience. So I wanted to say that because a lot of people come to me and they're like struggling and they're like, I don't know about Twitter, you know, but you know, if you love Instagram, then find your audience there. That's what I would do. That's my best advice.
I love that piece of advice. That is definitely like I tell my 7-year-old about eye makeup. Less is more. It really is. The same thing with social media. You know, and you're going to use a social media platform that you're the most comfortable on. That's just the bottom line. So, you know, if you feel like pressured to be on another social media platform, I mean, you're not going to use it. So what's the point? The consistency, that's the only thing I would add to Kelly, is that the consistency of content is key. When I start working with somebody that's had a page that sat there forever, even a week of good, consistent content does light years what it just sat there for the last 3 years doing nothing with inconsistent content. So that consistency and sticking to, I always say start small. You know, if you're on Facebook all the time and that's the only platform you're on, you're going to find your audience. And a lot of our decision makers are still on Facebook. And if a lot of you are coming in from, you know, the West Virginia, Ohio, that Virginia area, a lot of those folks are still, you know, going there for decisions. So, I mean, you don't have to be on these other platforms. I agree with the Instagram. I kind of like Instagram and that's why I'm there, but I don't know I can't really tell you that I've had that good of a return on investment, because those people follow me on Facebook and LinkedIn and email me and come to my trainings and they're clients. So I can't, you know, it's not just because I'm on Instagram. So I agree with that completely, and just consistency and focusing in on one platform or two.
Yeah.
No, I agree. You have to be able to maintain the consistency and the quality. So, and the other thing I would say is you also need to set the tone. So, for example, if you set the tone that you're posting every 3 hours, or as you post twice a week on specific days, that's what your audience gets used to. And, you know, that also varies by industry. Kelly, you were going to say something. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, I was just going to say, we have this thing that we say, especially with one of my clients, and it's like, he's you know, he's super busy running a company. And, you know, sometimes he's so busy that, you know, we don't make it through the content approvals and things like that. And so like our goal was always like, let's not, you know, go dark. Don't do that. And especially even if you're running ad campaigns, I've seen companies do that. They think they can just run an ad, but then their Facebook page hasn't had content in a year. So even if people click and then they go to your page, you're going to look super sketchy and they're going to think you're a spammer. So even if you just have a couple posts a week, and then people that I like, and I remember following, you know, on Twitter years ago, there were like different, you know, sports players and stuff I followed, and I would go and look and I'd be like, oh, they haven't updated their Twitter. And I would just like keep looking and they hadn't updated it. It was disappointing. And then I stopped looking. So,
might as well turn it off at that point.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's great. I appreciate both of you being here today. I'm going to give you a clap. I think you guys did really good. And I'm not seeing any more questions. So, you know, if you have anything else to add, if not, I think maybe we're done. But I want to thank everybody for coming. And once again, this was WVU, Reed School of Media. And, you know, I thought we had a great time today.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, thank you. This was fun. I love seeing all these people out here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.